Ezra English. Passive Listening Practice. Idiom Series. In this special edition, we are going to learn many easy-to-use idioms to score higher in speaking tests.
Piece of cake. Have you ever felt like you've got a task ahead of you that seems insurmountable? Maybe it's a big work project, a school assignment, or even just trying to tackle your ever-growing to-do list. Whatever the case may be, sometimes we need a little motivation to push through and get the job done. That's where the idiom piece of cake comes in. When we say something is a piece of cake, we mean that it's extremely easy and can be accomplished without much effort or difficulty. The origins of this phrase are unclear, but it's believed to have originated in the United States in the early 20th century. Perhaps it refers to the ease with which we can slice and eat a piece of cake. One of my favorite examples of this idiom comes from a time when I was in high school. I had a notoriously tough chemistry teacher who gave out some pretty difficult assignments. One day, we were given a lab report to complete, and I was feeling overwhelmed. My friend, who was always optimistic and cheerful, turned to me and said, "Don't worry, this is a piece of cake." We got to work, and sure enough, the assignment turned out to be much easier than we anticipated. Another example might be if you have a friend who is always complaining about how difficult it is to make a certain recipe. You might tell them that it's actually a piece of cake and offer to show them how it's done. With a little patience and guidance, they might be surprised at how easy it turns out to be. This idiom can also be used to describe something that was unexpectedly easy. For example, if you were worried about a job interview but ended up getting the job easily, you might say it was a piece of cake. Or if you were nervous about a public speaking engagement, but it ended up going smoothly, you could say it was a piece of cake. Of course, not everything in life is a piece of cake. Some things are difficult, and that's okay. But it's important to remember that sometimes, we might be overthinking things or psyching ourselves out. When we hear someone say piece of cake, it can serve as a reminder that things might not be as difficult as we thought. With a little confidence and perseverance, we might be able to accomplish something that initially seemed daunting. In conclusion, the idiom piece of cake is a lighthearted way to describe something that is easy and requires little effort. It's a great way to boost morale and remind ourselves that we are capable of achieving our goals. So the next time you're faced with a challenge, remember that it just might be a piece of cake. Break the ice. Imagine you're at a party or social gathering. You don't know many people there, and everyone seems to be in their little groups, chatting away. You're standing alone, feeling awkward and uncomfortable, wondering how you're going to make any connections. That's where the idiom break the ice comes in. It means to make a start or initiate conversation in a situation where people are unfamiliar with each other or feel uncomfortable. It's a way to get the ball rolling and create a more relaxed atmosphere. Let me give you an example. Last summer, I attended a friend's barbecue, and I only knew a couple of people there. Everyone was hanging out around the grill, and the conversation seemed to be flowing effortlessly. I wanted to join in but didn't know how to break the ice. Suddenly, a friendly-looking guy I'd never met before walked up to me and asked if I wanted a beer. It was such a simple gesture, but it made all the difference. It was like he was breaking the ice and inviting me into the group. As we talked, I realized that he was actually the host's cousin, and he didn't know many people there either. We bonded over our mutual love of grilling, and before we knew it, we were laughing and joking like old friends. That small gesture of offering me a beer broke the ice and made the whole evening much more enjoyable for me. Breaking the ice doesn't always involve offering someone a drink, though. It can be as simple as asking a question or making a comment that invites others to join in the conversation. For instance, if you're at a networking event and you don't know anyone, you could approach someone and ask them how they got into their field of work. This opens the door to more discussion and can help to break the ice. Or, let's say you're starting a new job and you're meeting your colleagues for the first time. You could try making a comment about the office decor or the coffee machine. This can be a great way to find common ground and start a conversation that helps to break the ice. Breaking the ice is not only useful in social situations, but it's also a vital skill in professional settings. For example, if you're about to give a presentation, starting with a joke or a story can help to ease the tension and make your audience feel more at ease. It can help to break the ice and create a more relaxed atmosphere, which can make all the difference in how your presentation is received. In conclusion, breaking the ice is all about initiating conversation and making people feel more comfortable in unfamiliar or awkward situations. It's a skill that can be applied in a variety of settings, from social gatherings to professional situations. So, next time you find yourself in a room full of strangers, take a deep breath, smile, and try to break the ice. You never know what kind of connections you might make.
On the same page. Have you ever been in a situation where you and someone else were not quite understanding each other? Maybe you were trying to plan a party with a friend, but they kept suggesting ideas that were completely different from what you had in mind. In times like these, it can be helpful to make sure that you are on the same page. The idiom "on the same page" means that two or more people have a shared understanding of a situation or topic. It's like being on the same page of a book. Everyone is reading from the same page and knows what's going on. When you and someone else are on the same page, you're in agreement and understand each other's point of view. This idiom can be applied to many different situations, including those that may come up in a speaking test like IELTS. Here are some examples of questions you might be asked and how you could use the idiom "on the same page" in your response. 1. Tell me about a time when you had to work with someone who had a different approach to a project than you did. For this question, you could say something like, "When I was working on a group project in school, one of my teammates had a really different idea of what we should do. We had to have a meeting and talk things out to make sure we were all on the same page." 2. How do you handle miscommunications in the workplace? In response to this question, you could say something like, "I always try to make sure that I'm on the same page as my colleagues by asking questions and clarifying things if I'm not sure. If there's a miscommunication, I'll bring it up right away and try to resolve it so that we can all move forward together." 3. Tell me about a time when you had to negotiate with someone. In this case, you could say something like, "When I was negotiating with a client on a project, we had some different ideas about what the final product should look like. We had to work together to find a solution that worked for both of us and make sure we were on the same page about what we wanted to achieve." The idiom "on the same page" can also be used in everyday conversations, such as when planning a social event or trying to come to a decision with friends or family. For example, if you're trying to plan a vacation with a group of friends and everyone has different ideas of what they want to do, you might say, "Let's have a meeting to make sure we're all on the same page about what we want to get out of this trip." Long story short, the idiom "on the same page" is a useful one to know and use in a variety of situations, whether you're taking an IELTS speaking test or just trying to communicate effectively with others. By making sure that you and those around you are on the same page, you can avoid misunderstandings and work together more effectively. Bark up the wrong tree. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you were trying to solve a problem but ended up looking in the wrong direction? If yes, then you might have been barking up the wrong tree. This idiom means to pursue a mistaken or misguided course of action or to direct your efforts towards the wrong person or thing. It's often used to describe a situation where someone is looking for answers or help in the wrong place. For example, imagine you are lost in a new city and you ask someone for directions to a famous restaurant. However, the person you ask doesn't know the city very well and gives you directions to a completely different restaurant. In this case, you could say that the person is barking up the wrong tree because they are looking for help in the wrong place. In a speaking test, you may encounter questions that ask you to describe a time when you made a mistake or had a misunderstanding. This could be a perfect opportunity to use the idiom, barking up the wrong tree. Here are some examples. Question: describe a time when you had a misunderstanding with someone. Answer: there was a time when I thought my friend had borrowed my book without asking. I confronted her about it, but it turned out she had actually borrowed a different book. I realized I was barking up the wrong tree. Question: have you ever tried to fix something, but it ended up making things worse? Answer: yes, there was a time when I tried to fix my broken laptop on my own. I thought I knew what the problem was, but I ended up breaking it even more. It turns out, I was barking up the wrong tree. Question: describe a time when you were looking for something but couldn't find it. Answer: there was a time when I was searching for my phone, and I thought I had left it in my room. I searched for hours, but it wasn't there. Later, I found it in my backpack, and I realized I was barking up the wrong tree. In these examples, the idiom, barking up the wrong tree, is used to describe a situation where the speaker pursued a mistaken or misguided course of action. It's an effective way to convey the idea that someone was looking for answers or help in the wrong place. In short, barking up the wrong tree is a colorful and descriptive idiom that can be used to describe situations where someone is pursuing a mistaken or misguided course of action. It's a great addition to your vocabulary and can help you communicate more effectively in both casual and formal situations. Hit the nail on the head. Have you ever had a moment when someone perfectly sums up what you're thinking, or says exactly what needs to be said? If so, you might say that they hit the nail on the head. This common idiom means to do or say something that is exactly right or accurate. Let me give you an example. One day, I was having trouble with my car. It was making a strange noise and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I took it to a mechanic, and he listened to the engine for a moment before saying, "I think it's a problem with the alternator." He was right on the money. When he replaced the alternator, the car was running perfectly again. In this case, the mechanic hit the nail on the head by accurately diagnosing the problem with my car. This idiom can also be used in a variety of situations. For example, imagine you're in a meeting at work and your boss is discussing a problem with the team. You might say, "I think John's suggestion hits the nail on the head. It really addresses the root of the issue." In this case, you're saying that John's suggestion is exactly what's needed to solve the problem. In a speaking test like IELTS, you might be asked to give your opinion on a particular topic or issue. You could use "hit the nail on the head" to express your agreement with a certain point of view. For example, if the question was, "Should schools ban junk food?" you could respond with, I completely agree with the experts who say that banning junk food in schools would be a step in the right direction. They really hit the nail on the head with that recommendation. Conversely, you might use this idiom to disagree with someone who has missed the mark. For instance, let's say you're discussing a movie with a friend who didn't like it. You might say, "I think you missed the point, the movie was a commentary on modern society." The director really hit the nail on the head with their portrayal of the characters. In this case, you're saying that your friend didn't understand the deeper meaning of the movie. In a speaking test scenario, you could be asked to give your opinion on a current event or social issue. You could use "hit the nail on the head" to express disagreement with a particular viewpoint. For example, if the topic was "should social media platforms be regulated," you could respond with, "I don't agree with those who argue that regulation would stifle free speech. I think the government needs to take action to protect people from harmful content online." The critics just aren't hitting the nail on the head with their arguments. Overall, "hit the nail on the head" is a useful idiom that can be applied to a wide range of situations. Whether you're discussing a problem at work or giving your opinion on a controversial topic, it's a great way to express that someone has done or said something that is exactly right or accurate. So the next time you hear someone use this idiom, you'll know exactly what they mean.
The ball is in one's court. Have you ever heard the phrase "the ball is in your court"? It's an idiomatic expression that means it's now someone's turn to make a decision or take action. Let's dive deeper into this phrase and see how it can be used in different situations. Imagine you're working on a group project with your classmates, and each of you has been assigned a specific task. It's now your turn to complete your part of the project, but you're unsure how to proceed. One of your teammates tells you, "The ball is in your court now. It's your turn to shine and show what you're capable of." In this scenario, "the ball is in your court" means that it's up to you to take action and complete your task. It's now your turn to step up and demonstrate your skills and knowledge. Now let's look at another situation. You've been waiting to hear back from a potential employer after a job interview. You've done your best to prepare for the interview and put your best foot forward, but now you're feeling anxious and unsure of what to do next. Your friend tells you, "The ball is in their court now. All you can do is wait and see what happens." Here, "the ball is in their court" means that the employer is the one who has to make the next move. You've done your part by attending the interview and presenting yourself well, but now it's up to the employer to make a decision. In both of these examples, "the ball is in your court" or "the ball is in their court" implies that it's someone's turn to take action or make a decision. It's a way of saying that the responsibility has shifted, and now it's up to the other person to do something. So how can this idiom be used in a speaking test? Let's take a look at some sample questions and how you might use "the ball is in your court" in your response. Question: what would you do if you were given a leadership position at your company? Response: if I were given a leadership position, I would take the initiative to identify areas for improvement and work collaboratively with my team to implement changes. I believe that effective leadership involves empowering others and creating a positive work environment. Of course, the ball would be in my court to ensure that my team is motivated and working towards our shared goals. Question: what do you think are the most important qualities for a successful entrepreneur? Response: I think that successful entrepreneurs need to be able to take risks and make difficult decisions. They also need to have a strong work ethic and be able to adapt to changing circumstances. However, it's important to remember that entrepreneurship is a team effort, and the ball is in their court to cultivate a supportive network of employees and stakeholders. In both of these examples, the ball is in their court is used to convey that while the speaker has a role to play, success ultimately depends on the actions of others. It's a way of acknowledging the importance of collaboration and recognizing that everyone has a role to play in achieving a common goal. In summary, the ball is in your court is a versatile idiom that can be used in a variety of situations. Whether you're working on a group project, waiting for a job offer, or discussing leadership qualities in a speaking test, this phrase can be a useful way to convey responsibility and encourage action. To go the extra mile. Have you ever gone the extra mile for someone or something? This idiom is often used to describe someone who goes above and beyond the expected effort or level of commitment. It implies that the person is willing to put in more effort or work harder than is required to achieve their goal. Let's explore this idiom and how it can be used in speaking tests. Going the extra mile can refer to many different things. It can mean working extra hours to finish a project, going out of your way to help someone, or putting in extra effort to achieve a personal goal. For example, if you're studying for an exam and you go the extra mile, you might spend extra time studying or seek out additional resources to help you prepare. This idiom can be particularly useful in the workplace. Employers often look for employees who are willing to go above and beyond their job description to help the company succeed. If you're in a job interview and you're asked about a time when you went above and beyond, you could use this idiom to describe your efforts. For example, you could say, "When I worked at XYZ company, I was tasked with organizing an event. I knew it was important to make a great impression, so I went the extra mile by creating personalized gift bags for all of the attendees." In a more personal setting, going the extra mile can also refer to putting in extra effort to make someone feel special. For example, if it's your friend's birthday and you want to make it extra special, you might plan a surprise party or buy them a thoughtful gift. You could say, "I wanted to make sure my friend felt loved and appreciated, so I went the extra mile and planned a surprise party for their birthday." Going the extra mile can also be applied to volunteering or community service. If you're passionate about a cause, you might volunteer your time or resources to help further the cause. For example, if you're passionate about animal welfare, you might volunteer at a local animal shelter or donate money to a rescue organization. You could say, "I'm really passionate about animal welfare, so I always try to go the extra mile by volunteering my time at the local animal shelter." In a speaking test, you might be asked about a time when you went above and beyond to achieve a goal or help someone. Here's an example of how you could use this idiom to answer that question. "Last semester, I was struggling in one of my classes. I knew I needed to improve my grades, so I went the extra mile and started attending office hours and seeking out additional resources to help me understand the material. In the end, my hard work paid off and I was able to improve my grade." Long story short, going the extra mile means putting in more effort or work than is required to achieve your goal. This idiom can be applied to many different situations, including the workplace, personal relationships, volunteering, and personal goals. If you're asked about a time when you went above and beyond in a speaking test, you can use this idiom to describe your efforts. Remember, going the extra mile shows dedication, hard work, and a willingness to succeed.
To spill the beans. Have you ever been entrusted with a secret that you couldn't wait to share with someone else? Or maybe you were the one who had to keep quiet about something juicy that you knew. Either way, the expression, spill the beans, probably crossed your mind. It's an idiom that we use when someone reveals a secret or confidential information that they were not supposed to share. Let me tell you a story about how I learned the meaning of this idiom. When I was a teenager, my best friend at the time, Anna, told me that she had a crush on our classmate, Tom. She begged me not to tell anyone, so of course, I promised to keep it a secret. However, the next day, I accidentally let it slip to another friend, who then told someone else, and before I knew it, everyone in our class was talking about it. When Anna found out, she was heartbroken and felt betrayed by me. I had spilled the beans, and it was not a good feeling. In a speaking test, you might be asked to describe a time when you had to keep a secret or when you heard a secret that you weren't supposed to know. You could use the idiom, spill the beans, to describe what happened. For example, well, I remember one time when my friend told me something that was supposed to be a secret. She had just broken up with her boyfriend, and she didn't want anyone to know yet. However, I accidentally spilled the beans when I mentioned it to another friend who didn't know it was a secret. I felt terrible and apologized to my friend, but I learned that it's important to keep your promises and respect people's privacy. Or you could be asked to describe a situation where someone else revealed a secret that they weren't supposed to share. In that case, you could say, I remember when my coworker accidentally spilled the beans about our boss's surprise party. We were all supposed to keep it a secret, but my coworker didn't realize that not everyone knew about it yet. It was really awkward when our boss found out, but we all tried to make it up to him by making the party even more special. The expression, spill the beans, can also be used in a more general sense, not just related to secrets. For example, if someone reveals information or details that were not meant to be disclosed, you could say they spilled the beans. In a speaking test, you could be asked to describe a time when someone shared too much information or talked too openly about something. You could say, I remember when my friend spilled the beans about my surprise birthday party. I had no idea that my friends were planning something, but my friend accidentally mentioned it when we were talking about something else. It wasn't a big deal in the end, but it did take away some of the surprise and excitement. Overall, the idiom, spill the beans, reminds us of the importance of keeping promises and respecting other people's privacy. It's never a good feeling to be the one who accidentally reveals a secret, and it can have consequences for our relationships and trustworthiness. In a speaking test, using this idiom can show that you have a good understanding of English idiomatic expressions and can use them in context. Just make sure you don't actually spill any beans during the test. A penny for one's thoughts. Have you ever been lost in your thoughts, only to have someone ask you what you're thinking about? It can be a bit jarring, especially if you weren't expecting the question. When someone asks you what you're thinking about, they might say, a penny for your thoughts, as a way to encourage you to share your thoughts with them. This is a common phrase that you've probably heard before, and it's called an idiom. The idiom, a penny for your thoughts, is often used to ask someone what they're thinking about or to express interest in someone's thoughts. It's a polite way to start a conversation or to show that you're genuinely interested in someone's ideas. It's also a great way to encourage someone to open up to you and share their thoughts. When you're taking a speaking test like IELTS, you may be asked to talk about your thoughts or opinions on a variety of topics. In these situations, the idiom, a penny for your thoughts, can be a great way to start your answer. Here are a few examples. What do you think about climate change? Well, a penny for my thoughts. I think that climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. Can you tell me about your experience studying abroad? Sure, a penny for my thoughts. Studying abroad was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. In both of these examples, the speaker starts their answer with the phrase, "a penny for my thoughts." This lets the listener know that they're about to share their thoughts or opinions on the topic at hand. The phrase, "a penny for your thoughts," has been in use for centuries, and its origins are not entirely clear. Some say that it comes from the practice of paying for information or insights, while others believe it's a shortened version of the phrase, "a penny for your tongue," which was used to encourage someone to speak up. Regardless of its origins, the phrase is still commonly used today in both casual and formal situations. It's a great way to express interest in someone's thoughts or to encourage someone to open up and share their ideas. Here are a few more examples of how the idiom, "a penny for your thoughts," can be used in everyday conversation. You seem lost in thought. A penny for your thoughts? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the matter. A penny for your thoughts? What's on your mind? A penny for your thoughts? In each of these examples, the speaker is expressing interest in someone else's thoughts or opinions. It's a great way to show that you're engaged in the conversation and that you value the other person's input. In summary, the idiom, "a penny for your thoughts," is a great way to encourage someone to share their ideas or to express interest in someone else's thoughts. It's a versatile phrase that can be used in a variety of situations, from casual conversations to formal presentations. When taking a speaking test like IELTS, using this idiom can help you to start your answer in a polite and engaging way. So, the next time you're curious about what someone else is thinking, don't be afraid to ask for a penny for their thoughts.
Play devil's advocate. Have you ever been in a conversation with a friend or colleague where you find yourself taking a position that you don't necessarily agree with, just for the sake of argument? If so, then you may have played the role of a devil's advocate. To play devil's advocate means to argue against a particular point of view, not because you necessarily disagree with it, but to test its validity or to explore other perspectives. It is a way to challenge assumptions and promote critical thinking. For instance, imagine a group of friends are discussing the merits of a particular policy proposal. One friend is advocating for the policy, while the others are skeptical. One of the skeptical friends may say, "Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. What if the policy has unintended consequences that we're not considering?" In this scenario, the friend playing devil's advocate is not necessarily arguing against the policy because they disagree with it, but rather to consider potential downsides and promote a more thorough examination of the proposal. In a speaking test, such as the IELTS, you may be asked to give your opinion on a particular topic or issue. You can use the idiom to play devil's advocate to acknowledge alternative perspectives and demonstrate critical thinking skills. For example, let's say the topic is about whether social media is a positive or negative influence on society. You could start by stating your position, but then say something like, "However, to play devil's advocate, one could argue that social media has given a voice to marginalized groups and has facilitated the spread of important information." Using the idiom in this way shows the examiner that you are capable of considering multiple viewpoints and can think critically about a given topic. In a workplace setting, playing devil's advocate can be a valuable tool for fostering innovation and problem solving. It allows for a diversity of perspectives to be heard and can help prevent groupthink. For example, imagine a company is considering launching a new product. The team responsible for the product may have a certain vision for how it should be designed and marketed. However, another team member could play devil's advocate and challenge assumptions by asking questions like, what if our target audience is not interested in this product? What if we're not taking into account a competing product that's already on the market? By playing devil's advocate, this team member is helping to ensure that the product is thoroughly examined from different angles and potential issues are identified and addressed. It's important to note that playing devil's advocate should be done in a constructive and respectful way. It's not about simply being contrarian or argumentative for the sake of it. Rather, it's about promoting critical thinking and considering alternative perspectives. In personal relationships, playing devil's advocate can also be helpful in fostering communication and understanding. It allows for individuals to explore different viewpoints without feeling attacked or dismissed. For example, imagine a couple is discussing where to go on vacation. One partner is advocating for a beach destination, while the other is advocating for a mountain retreat. By playing devil's advocate, one partner could say something like, I understand the appeal of a beach vacation, but have you considered how crowded and noisy it might be? On the other hand, a mountain retreat could provide a peaceful and secluded getaway. By playing devil's advocate, the partner is not dismissing the other's opinion, but rather trying to broaden the conversation and explore alternative options. In conclusion, playing devil's advocate is a valuable tool for promoting critical thinking and exploring alternative perspectives. It can be used in a variety of settings, from personal relationships to the workplace. In a speaking test, using this idiom can demonstrate your ability to consider multiple viewpoints and think critically about a given topic. However, it's important to use this tool in a respectful and constructive way. A blessing in disguise. Have you ever experienced something that seemed terrible at first but ended up leading to something positive? If so, then you've likely experienced a blessing in disguise. The idiom "a blessing in disguise" refers to a situation that seems bad or unfortunate at first but ultimately leads to a positive outcome. It's like finding a silver lining in a dark cloud. For example, let's say you're offered a job in a new city that you're not particularly excited about. You were hoping for a different position closer to home, but this is the only offer you've received so far. You're feeling disappointed and uncertain about whether to accept it or not. However, after moving to the new city and starting the job, you discover that it's a great company to work for, and you quickly make new friends in your new city. It turns out that the job was a blessing in disguise because it allowed you to grow personally and professionally in unexpected ways. Another example of a blessing in disguise could be getting rejected from a college or university that you really wanted to attend. It may feel like the end of the world, but perhaps you end up attending a different school that ends up being a better fit for you, with better opportunities and experiences than the first one would have offered. This idiom can be useful in a variety of situations, such as when facing challenges or setbacks, or when reflecting on past experiences. In a speaking test, you may be asked to describe a difficult situation you've faced and how you overcame it. In this case, you could use the phrase "a blessing in disguise" to explain how the experience ultimately led to positive outcomes. For example, question: can you describe a time when you faced a difficult situation? Answer: yes, I remember when I lost my job a few years ago. At the time, it felt like a huge setback and I was really stressed out about how I was going to pay my bills. But looking back now, I realized that losing that job was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to reevaluate my career goals and pursue a different path that ended up being much more fulfilling. Or, you may be asked to describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision. In this case, you could use the phrase "a blessing in disguise" to explain how the decision ended up being the right one for you. For example, question: have you ever had to make a difficult decision? Answer: yes, I remember when I was deciding whether or not to study abroad for a semester in college. It was a tough decision because I was worried about missing out on opportunities at my home university, but ultimately I decided to go for it. It ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. I learned so much about different cultures and made lifelong friends. It was definitely a blessing in disguise. Overall, the idiom "a blessing in disguise" reminds us that sometimes things that seem bad or difficult at first can turn out to be opportunities for growth and positive change. It encourages us to stay optimistic and look for the silver lining in challenging situations. To get cold feet. Have you ever been so excited about something that you can hardly contain your excitement? Maybe it's the thought of going on a first date with someone you've been crushing on, or the prospect of performing on stage in front of a live audience. You spend weeks or even months preparing, imagining how everything will go, and then the day finally arrives. But as the moment draws near, you start to feel a knot forming in your stomach. Your palms get sweaty, and your heart starts racing. Suddenly, all the excitement you felt before has turned into fear, and you start to wonder if you're really ready for what's about to happen. Congratulations, my friend. You've got cold feet. The idiom "to get cold feet" is used to describe the sudden feeling of fear or nervousness that arises before an important event or decision. It's a common experience that many people can relate to, whether they're facing down a job interview, a wedding, or a high-stakes exam. The origins of the phrase are a bit murky, but one popular theory is that it comes from the world of theater. In the early days of the stage, actors would stand on blocks of ice to keep their feet from getting too hot under the bright lights. If an actor suddenly became nervous and started to fidget, they would risk dislodging the ice blocks and giving themselves away. Thus, getting cold feet became a metaphor for losing one's nerve at a crucial moment. Of course, not everyone who gets cold feet is an actor. In fact, most of us experience this feeling at some point in our lives. Here are a few common scenarios where the idiom might come in handy. Before a wedding, you've spent months planning the perfect day, but as the wedding draws near, you start to worry about everything that could go wrong. What if the flowers don't arrive on time? What if the cake is terrible? What if you trip on your dress as you walk down the aisle? Suddenly, the idea of standing in front of all those people and making a lifelong commitment feels overwhelming, and you start to wonder if you're really ready for this. Before a job interview, you've been applying for jobs for months, and finally, you've landed an interview with your dream company. But as the interview approaches, you start to worry about all the things that could go wrong. What if you forget your lines? What if you can't answer a question? What if you spill coffee on your shirt right before the interview? Suddenly, the idea of sitting across from a potential employer and selling yourself feels daunting, and you start to wonder if you're really qualified for the job. Before a public speaking event, you've been asked to give a speech in front of a large group of people, and you've spent weeks practicing and preparing. But as the event draws near, you start to worry about how you'll come across. What if you stumble over your words? What if your jokes fall flat? What if the audience doesn't like you? Suddenly, the idea of standing in front of all those people and speaking feels terrifying, and you start to wonder if you should have declined the invitation. So how might you use this idiom in a speaking test? Here are a few possible scenarios. Describe a time when you got cold feet. Think of a specific event in your life when you felt nervous or scared about something. It could be a job interview, a test, a date, or anything else. Describe the situation, how you felt, and what you did to overcome your fear. Discuss a time when someone you know got cold feet. Maybe you have a friend or family member who has experienced this feeling. Talk about their situation, how they reacted, and what the outcome was. I remember a time when my cousin was about to get married, but he suddenly got cold feet just a few days before the wedding. He had been dating his girlfriend for 4 years, and they had been engaged for over a year. Everyone was excited about the upcoming wedding, and the preparations were in full swing. However, my cousin suddenly started feeling nervous and unsure about getting married. He confided in me about his fears, and I tried to reassure him that it was normal to feel nervous before such a big event. However, he couldn't shake off his anxiety and started considering calling off the wedding. He was worried about the commitment he was about to make and whether he was ready for it. Eventually, he decided to talk to his fiancée about his fears. She was understanding and patient and listened to him carefully. She didn't pressure him to make a decision and instead gave him space to figure things out. He also sought counseling, which helped him sort through his emotions and doubts. In the end, my cousin realized that he loved his fiancée and wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He went through with the wedding, and it was a beautiful and joyful event. They have been happily married for over a decade now, and my cousin has never regretted his decision. In terms of using the idiom "get cold feet" in a speaking test, here are a few examples. Example 1. Question: have you ever backed out of something at the last minute? Answer: yes, I have. I was supposed to go bungee jumping with some friends last year, but I got cold feet at the last minute. I suddenly started feeling very anxious and scared, and I couldn't bring myself to jump. I ended up sitting out and watching my friends jump instead. Example 2. Question: do you know anyone who has ever gotten cold feet before their wedding? Answer: yes, I do. My cousin got cold feet just a few days before his wedding. He started feeling very nervous and unsure about getting married, and he considered calling off the wedding. However, he eventually talked to his fiancée about his fears, sought counseling, and went through with the wedding. They have been happily married ever since. Overall, the idiom "get cold feet" is often used to describe a feeling of fear, anxiety, or hesitation about a big decision or event. It can be applied to a wide range of situations, from weddings to job interviews to extreme sports. In a speaking test, it can be useful to have a personal story or example ready to illustrate the meaning of the idiom and show how it can be used in real-life situations.
To throw in the towel. The idiom "to throw in the towel" means to give up or quit, especially after a long and difficult struggle. It's often used when someone has tried everything they can think of to achieve a goal or solve a problem, but they eventually reach a point where they feel like they can't continue any longer. This idiom comes from boxing, where a fighter's trainer would literally throw a towel into the ring to signal that the fighter was giving up and didn't want to continue the fight. Over time, the phrase has come to be used more broadly to refer to any situation where someone gives up or quits. For example, Imagine that you're studying for a difficult exam, and you've been working at it for weeks. You've tried every study method you know of, but you still can't seem to grasp some of the concepts. Finally, you reach a point where you're so frustrated and exhausted that you feel like giving up. You might say something like, "I think I'm going to throw in the towel on this exam. I've tried everything, but I just can't seem to make any progress." In a speaking test, you might be asked a question like, "Discuss a time when you had to make a difficult decision." You could use the idiom, "to throw in the towel," to describe a situation where you felt like giving up on something. For example, I remember a time when I was working on a project for school, and it was really difficult. I had been working on it for weeks, but I just couldn't seem to make any progress. I was so frustrated and exhausted that I felt like throwing in the towel and giving up. But I decided to take a break and come back to it later with a fresh perspective. In the end, I was able to complete the project and even received a good grade. Another example could be, I had a friend who was training for a marathon, and she had been working really hard for months. But as the race approached, she started to feel like she wasn't prepared enough. She thought about throwing in the towel and not running the race at all. But she decided to give it a try anyway and ended up finishing the race, even though it was really difficult. The idiom, "to throw in the towel," can be used in a variety of situations, from work and school to sports and personal relationships. It's often used to describe a situation where someone has been struggling for a long time and feels like they can't continue any longer. However, it's important to remember that throwing in the towel doesn't necessarily mean giving up permanently. Sometimes taking a break and coming back to a problem later can help you find a new perspective and achieve your goals in the end. To let the cat out of the bag. Have you ever been entrusted with a secret, only to accidentally reveal it to others? If so, you might have let the cat out of the bag, a common idiom used to describe the act of revealing confidential information. To let the cat out of the bag means to unintentionally or deliberately reveal a secret or surprise, usually to the wrong people. The origins of this idiom are not clear, but it is believed to have been used in medieval times, when people would sell live animals in bags. Unscrupulous sellers would sometimes try to trick buyers by putting a cat in the bag instead of a more valuable animal. Once the cat was revealed, the seller's trick would be exposed. In modern times, the idiom has evolved to refer to any situation in which confidential information is revealed. For example, imagine you are planning a surprise party for your best friend's birthday. You've spent weeks organizing everything, from the guest list to the decorations to the menu. You've sworn all the guests to secrecy, but one of them accidentally lets the cat out of the bag and tells your friend about the party. Your carefully planned surprise is ruined, and your friend is no longer surprised when the party rolls around. Another example could be in a workplace situation, where a company is planning a merger with another company. The details of the merger are supposed to be kept secret until the official announcement is made. However, one of the employees leaks the information to the press, letting the cat out of the bag. The media frenzy that follows can cause significant damage to the company's reputation and stock price. In a speaking test, you might be asked to talk about a time when you or someone you know let the cat out of the bag. For example, you might be asked, "Have you ever accidentally revealed a surprise to someone? Can you describe the situation?" To answer this question, you could talk about a time when you planned a surprise party for a friend or family member. but accidentally let the cat out of the bag by telling someone who wasn't supposed to know. You could talk about how you felt when you realized the surprise was ruined, and how you tried to make up for it. Alternatively, you could be asked, have you ever been told a secret that you weren't supposed to reveal? What did you do? In this case, you could talk about a time when someone entrusted you with a secret, but you accidentally let the cat out of the bag by telling someone else. You could talk about how you felt when you realized what you had done, and how you tried to make things right. In both cases, it's important to emphasize the importance of trust and confidentiality in relationships, whether they are personal or professional. Letting the cat out of the bag can have serious consequences, and it's important to think carefully before sharing sensitive information with others. In short, to let the cat out of the bag is a common idiom that refers to the act of revealing confidential information. This can happen in a wide range of situations, from personal relationships to business deals. In a speaking test, you might be asked to discuss a time when you or someone you know let the cat out of the bag, and it's important to emphasize the importance of trust and confidentiality in these situations.
To get the hang of something. Have you ever tried doing something new and struggled with it at first, but eventually, you got better and it became easy? If yes, then you've experienced getting the hang of something. This idiom is commonly used to describe the process of learning and becoming proficient at a skill or task. To get the hang of something means to become skilled or experienced in a particular activity, to understand how it works, and to be able to do it proficiently. It is usually used when someone has just started learning something and is still in the process of becoming proficient at it. For instance, imagine someone who has just started learning how to play a musical instrument. At first, they may struggle with hitting the right notes and keeping the rhythm. However, with practice and dedication, they eventually start to get the hang of it. They become more comfortable with the instrument and their playing becomes more fluid and natural. The phrase "get the hang of something" can be used in various situations. For instance, it can be used to describe the process of learning a new language, a new software program, a new sport, or any other skill that requires practice and dedication. To illustrate how this idiom can be used in speaking tests, here are a few examples of questions and suggested answers. Question: have you ever learned a new skill or hobby? How did you go about it? Answer: yes, I learned how to knit a few years ago. At first, it was challenging and I struggled to get the hang of it. But I practiced regularly and watched tutorial videos online, which helped me to improve. After a few weeks, I started to feel more comfortable with the needles and yarn, and I was able to create more complex patterns. Question: what is something that you've learned recently that you struggled with at first? Answer: I recently started learning how to code. At first, it was really difficult and I couldn't figure out how to write even the simplest of programs. But I kept at it and eventually started to get the hang of it. I started to understand the logic behind coding and how to troubleshoot errors. Now, I can write more complex programs and feel confident in my coding abilities. Question: how do you approach learning a new skill? Answer: when I want to learn a new skill, I usually start by researching it online and finding resources that can help me. Then, I try to practice as much as possible and get feedback from others who are more experienced. I know that it may take time to get the hang of it, but I try to be patient and persistent in my efforts. In summary, to get the hang of something is a useful idiom that describes the process of learning and becoming proficient at a new skill or task. It can be used in various situations and is a great way to express the idea of gradually improving and becoming more comfortable with something over time. To be in hot water. To be in hot water is a common idiom that is often used to describe someone who is in trouble or facing a difficult situation due to something they have done. The phrase is believed to have originated in the early 1800s and is thought to have been inspired by the idea of a person being punished by being placed in a hot bath or sauna. When someone is in hot water, they may be facing consequences for their actions, or they may be dealing with a difficult situation that they have caused. For example, if a student fails to complete an assignment on time, they may be in hot water with their teacher. Alternatively, if an employee makes a mistake at work that causes a problem, they may be in hot water with their boss. The idiom can also be used in a broader sense to describe any situation in which someone is facing difficulty or trouble. For example, a company that is struggling financially may be said to be in hot water, or a politician who has made an unpopular decision may be said to be in hot water with their constituents. One way to use this idiom in a speaking test is to ask the test taker to describe a time when they or someone they know was in hot water. For example, have you ever been in hot water at school or work? What happened? Can you think of a time when someone you know was in hot water with their family or friends? How did they handle it? How would you react if you found yourself in hot water with your boss or teacher? When answering these types of questions, it's important to be honest and provide as much detail as possible. It's also a good idea to focus on how the situation was resolved or what steps were taken to address the issue. For example, if the question is about a time when the test taker was in hot water at work, they might answer like this. Yes, there was a time when I was in hot water with my boss at my previous job. I made a mistake on a project that I was working on, and it ended up costing the company a lot of money. My boss was very upset with me, and I thought I might lose my job. However, I decided to take responsibility for my mistake and work with my team to come up with a solution to fix the problem. In the end, we were able to resolve the issue and even came up with a way to prevent similar mistakes from happening in the future. I learned a lot from that experience, and I always make sure to double-check my work now to avoid making the same mistake again. In this example, the test taker describes a specific situation where they were in hot water at work due to a mistake they made. They also explain how they took responsibility for the mistake and worked with their team to resolve the issue, demonstrating their problem-solving skills and ability to take ownership of their actions. Overall, understanding the idiom to be in hot water is important for effective communication in both casual and professional contexts. By providing specific examples and demonstrating an understanding of the nuances of the phrase, test takers can show that they are capable of using idiomatic language in their conversations and written responses. To burn the midnight oil. Have you ever had a big project or an exam to study for, but you just couldn't seem to find enough hours in the day to get it all done? If so, then you might be familiar with the expression to burn the midnight oil. This idiom means to work or study late into the night, usually when you are very tired or it is very late. It implies that you are pushing yourself to your limits, sacrificing sleep and leisure time to get the job done. The phrase is often used in a positive sense, suggesting that someone is very dedicated or hardworking. The origin of this idiom comes from the time before electricity, when people had to use candles or oil lamps to light their homes. If someone was working or studying late into the night, they would literally have to burn the oil in their lamp to see what they were doing. In modern times, we don't have to worry about the cost of oil or candles, but the expression still carries the same meaning. It is often used in academic or professional settings when someone is putting an extra effort to complete a task or achieve a goal. For example, a student might say, "I had to burn the midnight oil to finish my term paper on time." Or a business owner might say, "We've been burning the midnight oil to meet our deadline for the new product launch." When using this idiom in a speaking test, you may be asked to describe a time when you had to burn the midnight oil to complete a task or project. Here's an example of a possible question and answer. Question: Can you tell me about a time when you had to work late into the night to complete a project? Answer: Sure, there was a time last semester when I had to burn the midnight oil to finish a group project for my marketing class. We were given a very short deadline, and my group members weren't able to contribute as much as I had hoped. So, I ended up doing most of the research and writing myself, and I stayed up until 3 a.m. several nights in a row to get it all done. It was definitely a challenge, but we ended up getting an A on the project, so it was worth it. To summarize, to burn the midnight oil is an idiom that describes working or studying late into the night. It suggests a strong work ethic and dedication to a task or goal, even in the face of exhaustion. This expression is commonly used in academic or professional settings and can be a useful way to describe a time when you put an extra effort to achieve something important.
To be a piece of work. The idiom, "to be a piece of work," is a colorful way to describe a person who is difficult, complicated, or challenging to deal with. It's often used when someone is trying to describe a person who is very high maintenance or has a strong personality that requires a lot of patience and effort to manage. For example, imagine a boss who is always changing their mind about what they want, never satisfied with anyone's work, and always micromanaging every little detail. They might be described as a real piece of work. It's not necessarily a compliment, but it's not always an insult either. It's just a way of acknowledging that this person is difficult to work with. Another example might be a friend who is always causing drama, getting into arguments, and making life more complicated than it needs to be. You might say that they are a real piece of work when trying to explain to someone else why you find them exhausting to be around. In speaking tests, you might be asked to describe a person you know who is difficult to deal with. This is a perfect opportunity to use the idiom, "to be a piece of work." For example, you might be asked, "Can you describe a difficult person you know?" "Well, there's this guy I used to work with who was a real piece of work. He was always demanding more than what was possible, nitpicking every little detail, and never seemed to be satisfied with anything. It was a real challenge to work with him, but I learned a lot about patience and communication in the process." Or you might be asked, "What kind of people do you find difficult to work with?" "I find that people who are constantly changing their minds and never seem to be satisfied with anything can be really challenging. They're a real piece of work, you know? It's like they don't even know what they want, but they're always expecting everyone else to figure it out for them." It can be really frustrating to deal with that kind of person. Overall, the idiom, "to be a piece of work," is a useful way to describe someone who is difficult or complicated in a way that is both memorable and colorful. It's a great addition to your vocabulary if you're looking for a way to describe a person who is a challenge to deal with, whether it's at work, in your personal life, or anywhere else. Cut to the chase. Have you ever been in a situation where you just wanted someone to get to the point? You were tired of listening to them ramble on and on about things that had nothing to do with what you wanted to know. If so, then you've probably thought, cut to the chase already. This idiom means to get to the important part of something, without wasting any time on unnecessary details. The phrase, cut to the chase, has an interesting origin. It comes from the early days of the film industry when many movies would end with a chase scene. To save time and money, filmmakers would often cut out all of the unnecessary dialogue and action leading up to the chase, and just cut to the chase. This way, the audience would get to the exciting part of the movie quickly. In everyday conversation, you might use this idiom when you want someone to get to the point and stop wasting time with irrelevant information. For example, if you were trying to buy a car, and the salesman was talking about the weather and his family for too long, you might say, "Okay, can we cut to the chase? What's the final price of the car?" Here are some examples of how this idiom might be used in speaking tests. 1. Question. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone was taking too long to get to the point? Answer. Oh, definitely. I remember one time, I was trying to plan a surprise party for my best friend, and one of our friends just kept going on and on about unrelated topics. I finally had to interrupt and say, "Hey, can we cut to the chase? I need your help with something." 2. Question. Can you think of a situation where it's important to cut to the chase? Answer. Yes, definitely. In a work environment, time is often of the essence. If you're in a meeting or on a conference call, it's important to get to the point quickly, so that everyone can move on to the next topic. In that kind of situation, saying, "Let's cut to the chase," can be really helpful. 3. Question. Do you think it's ever okay to not cut to the chase and take your time? Answer. Sure, there are definitely times when it's important to take your time and not rush things. For example, if you're having a deep conversation with a friend or family member, it's important to give them the time and space they need to express themselves fully. But in general, when it comes to business or other practical matters, it's usually best to cut to the chase and get things done efficiently.